From the Israel Sports Radio studios in Jerusalem, Israel, our nation's capital, it's Louis Live. Now, your host, B, special in-guest studio co-host, Radio Mike.
How you doing, everybody?
Radio Mike, great to have you back in town. What brings you to the Holy Land this time around?
Oh, it's always the same thing. I might be most of the year in Kew Garden Hills, Queens, and New York, but I live in Israel. This is the time where I enjoy myself the most, seeing the Holy Land. That's what I'm doing here, and that's why I'm here.
And the heat doesn't bother you at all?
Heat?
Compared to New York, it's nothing, right?
The weather here is just absolutely great. I mean, even
the nighttime is awesome.
The nighttime, the air is so, it's so beautiful, crystal clear air. New York has just been humid and yucky and raining and awful. But anyway, even the heat here and it's just been delightful here. Beautiful.
And it's great to have you back in studio. Folks, we have a jam-packed show. We have 6 guests coming up in the next 2 hours. We will talk about the big story, biogenesis scandal regarding the players taking some deals, some not, such as A-Rod's going to fight this to the end. We will also talk about the latest of the pennant chases, trade rumors, all that good stuff. But we're going to actually switch gears right now. The Maccabi 2013 just occurred last week, and the United States was the champions. And Radio Mike, you were involved with the IAB, or actually the IBL was called back in the day. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, it was a great idea. The Israel Baseball League, it was a lot of fun while it lasted. It was only one season. It was a little bit underfunded. Some of the ideas were good. Some of them weren't so good. Some of the management possibly could have been a little bit better. It's really a shame that it didn't work out. I think there is potential for professional baseball in Israel. It's a shame it didn't work out. Hopefully one day it will work out. You need a couple baseball fields. You do have a nucleus of players there. Just like there's a football league, in Israel right now with pads and everything. And they're having a good time and it's fun. You can have a lot of players playing from Israel. You don't have to import players from all over the world to play in Israel. Use Israelis. If a person wants to come from Florida and he's good enough, let him come to Israel and play baseball.
Absolutely well said. And talk more about the IBL and especially the Maccabi that happened in 2013. The former president of the IBL and, of course, still associated with the IAB, Mr. Haim Katz. Haim, welcome to Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio.
Hello. Thank you, Ari. Long time no hear.
Yeah, right. It's been a whole 2 or 3 days. And, Haim, I want to introduce you to Mr. Radio Mike, also known as Michael Orlhouse. I'm sure you're familiar with him.
How are you, Haim?
Yes, Mike. How are you? I haven't seen you for quite a few years, but I remember you from the IBL well.
It was a lot of fun.
All right, Chaim, talk about the Maccabi. We had a little bit of everything. We had 2 no-hitters that were pitched. We had a balk. We had 2 coaches ejected. We didn't see a home run, but overall I thought it was pretty good. I thought there was good camaraderie between the teammates and between the opposing teams. So just talk about the assessment you have overall of the Maccabi of 2013.
Well, for us it was extremely successful, both from organizational standpoint and from the performance of our team. We had, as you know, Team Israel, our junior team beat USA for the first time ever, and as far as I know, that's true also for softball. Also, that Team USA has never lost to Israel in a baseball or softball game. And we beat Canada 1 game. Both of those games were very good, and we lost to Canada after 11 innings when we were playing a 7-inning regulation ball. So they were exciting games. Team Israel, those 3 games, played 72 innings with only 3 errors for 18-year-olds. So that's to me that's something that's also something incredible, and it shows. I was listening to you guys a little bit before about Israeli players. I don't think we had that caliber 7 years ago, and here's a group of young players who are moving up, who are ready to play some serious ball.
Absolutely. And talk a bit about Yotam Ben Amram. He pitched into the 11th inning, and I never saw that from a high school player before. Really impressive. He set a record, Maccabi out for most innings pitched by one pitcher in one game. So we expect big things from him. So talk about him and his development. I spoke with his father a little bit. I know he's been playing baseball for a long, long time. So give us some more information about Yotam Ben Amram.
Yeah, he's one of our. He started in Kibbutz Gezer, like many of our other stars, like Alon Leishman, who's now going to play for San Diego next year. He's one of the younger players on the team there. I think he's like 16, so he's got another couple years at least. I'm not sure if he's going to be a junior or senior next year. And if you ask me, he's a tall kid. He's about 6'1", and he's likely to get 6'4", 6'5". He's still growing. So and he can put a little heat on, and then if he sticks with it, there's a lot of potential there.
Yotam actually pitched that game in the 11th on his 16th birthday, so that was certainly a nice birthday gift that he gave to his teammates. Now, what's interesting with players when they're in the high school range, of course, Israel, for those listening outside the country of Israel, there's mandatory Army service, so a lot of times that could derail a young man's talent. So talk about how they basically, Israel baseball will go about it. Will there be a chance that there would be an exemption given out for players that they're at a certain level to not do Army service? So talk a bit about what the likelihood of that is coming up.
No, we have the Army with all sports. It's and not even just sports. Also, talented musicians and dancers and other professions where if you take 2 years out of the prime of their profession, then it's going to hurt them. So they have this program where they call in sports, it's called Sportai Mitztayen or outstanding athlete. And if you're really good, like in the Olympics, then you have almost an exemption. You show up a few times and say hello to the staff sergeant or something. But most of the soldiers, they work, they go to the Army for like 5 or 6 hours a day, and then they have the rest of the time they can work out and go to practices or games or whatever. And they're also given up to around 90 days a year where they get furloughs where they can take time to do practices. And we've had, over the years, we've had 6 or 7, and we hope that some of these guys you saw in the Maccabi also will be able to, first of all, they're going to want to do it, and then secondly, the Army, there's a quota as to how many athletes they can have in there, but we had Dudu Malka was there for the final game, and he's in charge of competitive sports in the Ministry of Sport, and he said that as long as they're worthy, that they should be able to get it.
Chaim, I had 1 or 2 questions for you. I was just wondering, what are the chances that we will, in our lifetime, see pro baseball once again in Israel? Are any fields possibly being worked on that would get a really good baseball stadium besides Baptiste Field in Petach Tikva? Do you see any future in baseball in Israel? I mean, I would love to see it. I think, there's room for another sport, maybe even in the summer. A lot of people have chofesh, they have free time in the summer. I went to the Israel Museum last night. I saw literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kids. Their parents brought them to the museum. They're looking for something to do, and I think they get a little taste of baseball. I think it would be a nice thing for Israel. What do you think?
You walked into an open door here. I think that we're in much better shape than we were when Larry Bear started the league in 2007. First of all, we have 2 places that we are actively trying to get a field built. We have a plot in Ranana, and we have an agreement with the city. Our goal there is to build a full-fledged facility with locker rooms and about 1,000 seats, and of course, lights, and it's near where the amphitheater is in Ranana, And we have now about $800,000 in pledges, and hopefully within 30 days we're going to start building and getting the field built, and then we have to raise some more money to get the rest of the facilities built. But that's pretty much on its way. We need a little more money. We have another opportunity in Modi'in. The city of Modi'in has given us a plot of land for a field. It's not quite big enough to have full-fledged facilities, but certainly it'll be a nice-sized field. And we need to raise about $100,000 or so to match what the city's giving us in order to get the field off the ground there. We also have opportunities in Beit Shemesh and some other places. So I think and we were talking with some of the with some major league owners who have expressed an interest in pro ball, like you said, bringing back pro ball here, and then possibly even having a winter league in Israel. The climate is certainly in favor of it.
Any possibilities a field someplace in Jerusalem?
There is a possibility. I personally have somewhat disappointed. There was a field in Katamon that they next to Katamon that they said that they wanted to build. Some kind of stadium there or something. The residents were against it, and they said, "Well, you go convince the residents that they can build a baseball field there, and we'll build a field there." So I went to the residents council, and I gave a speech, and they wrote a letter in favor of the baseball field, and the city said, "Fine, now we'll build a soccer field." So
oh man,
a little disillusioned with them, but we're starting again. Our main problem is, of course, finances. We need, we now have these. We're going where we have the opportunities. We have the opportunity right now. We have the opportunity in Modi'in, and we need friends out there in the States who like you said, want to see this dream of baseball growing and getting baseball here. I think it's good for Israel. Our tagline is where traditions meet. The tradition of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob meets the traditions of Ruth and Koufax and Greenberg, and this is the place. And there's no better place where to foster Aliyah and to foster the youth of Israel and North America and get them together as we show them in Maccabi Yatar.
Well said. I'm sorry, Radio Mike, go ahead.
No, I'm excited. Anytime you mention Katamon or any place like that, I mean, I think that would be just a great thing for Israel and for baseball, and it'd be a great, great to see.
Chaim, I have to ask you, of course, we had Peter Kurtz on during the broadcast last week, and you mentioned winter baseball as well. We'll talk about the realistic of that, because when I first heard that, I thought, they're dreaming. I mean, that sounds too good to be true, the idea of professionals coming in, playing winter baseball, then eventually go to the major leagues, and then make a stop in Israel. But talk about why, let's put you on the hot seat. Why would somebody decide to play in Israel as opposed to play in Arizona, Florida, in the United States where it's convenient, more closer? Why would they choose Israel over those places?
I don't know. They go to the Dominican, some other places.
Right.
I think
Okay.
I personally think Israel's a great place to be, especially in the summer. I mean, a lot of baseball players, everybody who comes here really enjoys it here. I think it's another alternative. We're not going to replace those leagues. We're going to add. We'll have our 5, 6, 7 teams or whatever, and then they'll also, there's enough baseball players to go around for everybody. I think, and there's no shortage of baseball players that want to come to Israel. I mean, if you find a way to pay their ticket, they'll come here and they'll coach and they'll do everything else.
I mean, you have a basketball league.
Just as the IBL, in terms of recruiting players, was incredibly successful.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't promising huge salaries when they got here. They got like I think for the whole summer they got like their living expenses and another $2,000 or something. So,
I mean, you have a whole basketball league, and they're coming from all over the world to play basketball in Israel. So people would come to Israel to play baseball. Why not?
There you go. All right, Chaim, let's do this. Anyone listening, if they want to get involved with Israel baseball, they want to play, what have you, what is the best way they can go about getting involved and contacting the league?
Okay, we have our website, baseball.org.il. So you can get in contact there. You have our email, which I think is baseball@baseball.org.il. You can contact me directly. My email is katzhd@gmail.com. And if you Google Baseball Israel, you'll get to one of the accounts there.
All right, and last question for you: how great was my and Alex's performances of bringing baseball broadcast to everybody in the world?
You guys were awesome. I'm telling you, I was sitting. I heard every word that you guys went through, every word that you guys said as I was sitting about
2 feet away.
2 feet, 2 feet from you. And certainly, I can say that you made the blowouts, the time pass more pleasantly, and you made the close games even more exciting. I was sure I was listening to a World Series broadcast that semifinal between Israel and Canada. And they're still on the web, so anybody that wants to listen to them is certainly welcome.
All right, nothing like fishing for a compliment, but Chaim delivered. Chaim, great stuff as always. Thank you for the opportunity to broadcast the game. I want to thank you in public as well, and thank you for being on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Thank you, Chaim.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Mike. Okay.
Be well. Haim Katz, the former president of the IAB, still involved with the IAB. Obviously, Peter Kurtz is the current president. We hope to get an interview with him at some point. Of course, Peter is very busy, but it's great to contact him whenever we can. So we look forward to that as well. Radio Mike, if you just talk a little bit about your experience. Of course, you were the general manager of the Beit Shemesh Blue Sox. So talk about what that experience was like for you back in 2007.
It was really a thrill. I mean, it only lasted 1 year. There were some huge problems with the league. But, I picked a lot of the players for the team. I had a say in a lot of the day-to-day activities there. I was following the games as best I could. I kept contact with the players when I went back to America, and I was, trying to follow the games as much as I could and get all the information. It was a lot of fun. It was like, being a general manager and an owner all in one. It was just... It was a thrill, I tell you, and I'm really surprised that more people that yes, I do love baseball, but there aren't more people that, from America that should get involved, and they can get their dream, come true as well. I can't certainly play baseball. I'm not good enough for that. Those days are way over. But, if a person wants to be active in bringing baseball to Israel, contact Haim Katz. You can contact me. I would certainly put you in the right direction. Radio Mike 33 at gmail.com. You can make a person happy just by playing baseball. Why not?
Yeah, that sounds good stuff. We're going to switch gears, go from baseball in Israel to baseball in Major League Baseball. And joining us now to help us do that, the voice of Baltimore sports, Deep Voice, Brian Hoffman. Deep Voice, welcome back to Louis Live.
Thanks for having me on, and this is a treat. I didn't even know I was going to, have to gear up for AL East baseball here with Radio Mike. What's up, brother?
How you doing? Well, we're going to,
I surprised you, Deep Voice. Ha-ha! Yeah. Gotcha.
You're up by 3.5 games.
This is a treat because, guys, right now I'm currently watching the MLB TV production of this trade deadline situation. I mean, this is enjoyable. I just shifted around the plans of my day to watch this thing, mainly because, honestly, as an Orioles fan who didn't have a legit team until last year, I'm not used to these kind of days. This is like a holiday to big baseball fans that are lucky enough to still have a team that's in contention to go into the playoffs.
Well, Baltimore has a good team this year. I mean, you still qualify for the wild card. that AL East is probably the 2 wild card teams are probably going to come from there. It could be Texas also, but the Yankees are, I would say a long shot. I mean, they're not playing well. They don't have any hitting, but even the Yankees are at this point are only 3.5 games behind the Orioles, who have the second wild card slot right now. But you're right. You get another player or two. Baltimore could even overtake, I think, Tampa Bay or Boston. You never know.
I would be very surprised, Radio Mike, if the Yankees stood pat. Even at the end of today, even after getting Soriano, I think that was a good move for them because, like any move,
great.
I feel for the Yankees at this point, and again, I give credit to the Yankees starting pitching. Obviously there's holes there. Until a little while ago, they were fielding like a third of their lineup seemed to be like a AAA, 4A kind of a lineup. Then they get Soriano, but I feel like if they still got like a couple of bats, and everybody could always be in the market for a pitcher. Right now with the Orioles, it's all about the huge question, how much do you want to give up of your future? How much do you have in the minor leagues? Some of these teams that are making trades are very lucky to have like a plethora of talent in their minor league system. The Orioles and the Yankees, I don't feel like, are a couple of those teams. We don't have that kind of a luxury. Tampa Bay, for example, they could throw 5 guys out of AAA that could get you under a 4 ERA right now. So they seem to be a likelier trade partner. I think that's what it's all about, is the chips. And I don't think the Orioles are going to be interested in spending $25 million on Cliff Lee, who is really the one guy in all of this who, to me, is a guy I'd love the Orioles to pick up, a dominant ace, possibly heading into the playoffs, who, even if you get a wild card, could win you that one-game wild card spot. The guys the Orioles are going after right now are more of middle-of-the-rotation pitchers that could, help out a situation, especially given the fact that Jason Hamill right now is pitching to over a 6 ERA. He's doing nothing even as a number 5 pitcher. He couldn't even really help you in the bullpen right now. Orioles are in need of pitching. They're talking as well about hitting, having a DH, and also having another reliever. But I think the starting pitcher is huge.
Deep voice, let's make fun of you a little bit. Chris Davis only has 1 home run since the All-Star break. Me and Radio Mike were talking about that in the green room. How do you explain that?
It could be a bunch of reasons they're talking about right now. He had a blister in the home run derby that popped. I don't know about the science of that, if that could be an effective thing. He's done a lot of uppercutting of a lot of pitches, swinging out of a lot of pitches out of the strike zone, almost to show that he sort of is in still a home run derby mode almost. He finally hit his first home run since the All-Star game. Literally yesterday night in the first game of the series against Houston. It was a big home run too. I mean, to be down 3-2 going into the late innings against the Houston Astros, where you're facing a guy they're throwing in there who is a replacement for Bud Norris. And I mean, that's a game you got to win. So we're going into the late innings. We're not even beating Houston.
Deep voice.
Thank goodness Chris Davis chooses a good time to get it going again.
Well, deep voice. You bring up a point. I'm really against that home run derby. I don't know why the fans like it so much. I find it a little bit boring, to tell you the truth. But that just hitting home run after home run, and trying to hit 450 feet or whatever. But I think I'd like to see a study on this, like how many home runs a person hit before the All-Star break and then after the All-Star break. Like David Wright, one season, I think he was in the home run derby. He had like 15 or 17 home runs at the All-Star break, and the rest of the season for the Mets he hit 4. And it just ruins your swing. Just uppercutting the ball like you mentioned. I think it could be disastrous results on a person's swing. That's not the way a major leaguer should go up there just to hit home runs. I mean, it's a fun thing to do, and some of the fans like it, but I think it's very detrimental. And before my player on my team would go out and try for home run derby, I'd be very nervous about it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard a lot of news of guys like, Cespedes from Oakland who won the thing, doing that well since the All-Star game. I mean, to me, the Oakland Athletics in general have been just kind of like a 500 team since the break. Cespedes hits all those home runs. What does that really matter now,
Exactly. Well, it seems like it used to be everyone said that you needed the singles hitter and, you had to run, and that's the way you won games, and you didn't have to rely on the 3-run homer. But in the last 2 or 3 years, it seems like teams are gearing up for the 3-run homer, and the best teams are the teams that are actually hitting home runs for the most part.
By the way, speaking of hitting a home run, I just got to give a little shout-out real quick to my man Ari Louis, because if you're coming by Jerusalem like I was a few weeks back, this is like Abraham out of the Bible. Ari is Mr. Hospitality. Not only has you on a radio show, but takes care of you while you're in Israel. I mean, what a guy. I mean, Ari, you had like the round of applause just like for your sound effect.
I'm blushing right now. I don't know if I can make applause for myself, but maybe Mike is. I would feel a little haughty do that. That's very touching, Deep Voice. Chris Deep Voice spent a week in Israel. We hung out a lot. You used to probably spend the night at my place like 4 or 5 times. It was like a lot of fun. It was like a slumber party, except guy-wise. It was all, it wasn't all. We hung out, we talked sports, we watched sports. We watched the 30 for 30 about the Fab Five. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, private message us, guys, or ladies, if you'd like to know about an incident of a door being locked downstairs for an hour and a half.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was at the Friday night party. We apologize for anyone who left and couldn't come to the party because it was a lot of fun. It kicked off after midnight. But anyways, regarding I want to go back to Chris Davis because you talk about the blister, and Radio Mike brought up the point, the home run derby. I mean, is he not going to get to 61? He right now is at 38 home runs, I believe. So what do you think is going to happen the last 2 months of the season or so?
I mean, as far as Chris Davis and records are going, I mean, Manny Machado had the same kind of situation going himself with doubles. I'm more interested in Orioles wins right now.
Wow, all right, I like that.
Run.
Good answer.
I'd like to see Chris Davis start to get rid of that uppercut, start to drive the ball. I'd rather have him. A lot of people forget. I mean, he has had a little bit of a home run drought, but he hasn't had an RBI drought. He has 99 RBIs. Him and Cabrera are currently tied. Cabrera has a lot of health issues going on right now. Actually, Chris Davis, if he kind of gets back into form a little bit from the first half of the season, with Cabrera possibly looking to be on the show, I'd be scared to be a Detroit Tigers fan right now. We have a situation where because Verlander's not having fun with Kate Hudson anymore, possibly, the guy's pitching to an ERA similar to Jason Hamill, and that's just not a good situation because the Tigers, to me, are right there with the Rays, in my opinion, at the top of the American League. But the Tigers just aren't doing it in a bunch of areas right now. Then you got Miguel Cabrera's health. I mean, forget about the MVP race. Yeah, it'd be great to have Chris Davis as the MVP representing Baltimore. I don't think we've had, City of Baltimore's had a baseball American League MVP since Cal Ripken, I believe.
1991. Yep.
Early 80s?
1991, he won an MVP, and in 83.
Early 90s, excuse me. Yeah. Cal. So, it really tells you a lot about, the talent of players that have come through here, how long they've been here, and what they've done. This is exciting times in Baltimore right now, coming off of a Super Bowl, and then having a baseball team that's competitive for the first time in like 15 years. Like I said, I had to completely revamp my plans today because I had no idea that there was going to be all this massive coverage on the trades and everything. I don't have a lot of, looking at all of this right here, I don't have a lot of breaking news really to report. But, again, there's a lot of, to me, these number 2, 3 type pitchers like Bud Norris. maybe even a Tim Lincecum that might be available for teams.
Well, maybe Michael Young from the Phillies.
Michael Young seemingly wants to go to the Red Sox right now. He had a no trade clause where the only team he could go to would be like the Yankees. It seems like he wants to go to the Red Sox. That may not necessarily happen. There's talk that Michael Young could go to the Orioles. Michael Young, to me, a solid upgrade potentially in the middle of the lineup. Certainly a guy the Orioles could use, the Yankees could use. For the Orioles, more than the Yankees, I think it would be more of a luxury at this point. We already have a guy in Henry Urrutia, a young guy, because the Orioles are trying to play in a rebuilding mode as well. This Urrutia, although he doesn't have a lot of power and RBI production, is giving us right now at 275 to 300. My feelings, though, is that the Orioles need to pick up a guy that can knock the runner in, especially if guys like Machado or Chris Davis happen to cool down. Unfortunately, that's what happens when you're a home run hitting team and a team with a glorious offense. Look, the Orioles were looking to possibly send 8 hitters to the All-Star game at the beginning of the season, and how they did. And that's what happens when you rely on this crazy offense. You could have these dry spells. That's why I think in baseball, pitching rules at the end of the day. And what if you have one of these dry spells in the playoffs and then you're done, especially when the colder months set in? You know, Radio Mike, how you go to New York City in the winter, it's a lot different than the summertime.
Well, but Baltimore, I think you have a lot to look forward to, and I wouldn't give up on Baltimore just quite yet. I mean, you have Markakis, you have Wieters. He's really, I think he's just about an all-star catcher. And, you have a lot more positives there. You have one of the best managers in baseball, Buck Showalter. He just knows how to handle a team. He knows how to make the right moves. I don't really understand how he wears a warm-up jacket when he goes out to the mound when it's 96 degrees in Baltimore.
We saw that in Arizona, too. He did it in Arizona also.
Yeah, does he get like $50 every time he comes out there to try, from the...
Maybe he got used to that weather-controlled situation in the desert there.
With the Bakewell Ballpark in the Dome.
Temperature wherever you want. I think Carson Palmer's going to enjoy that a little bit this year.
I hope so. As long as he throws touch-up passes, I don't care. And by the way, Buck Showalter, what he does, he builds up teams. They fire him, and then they win titles. Is with the Yankees and Diamondbacks. So that's what the Orioles should really, I'm just kidding, of course, but tongue-in-cheek, if they fired him, they probably win. Last question for Deep Voice. You brought up Justin Verlander and Kate Hudson. Some people think that is affecting his pitching, the whole paparazzi issue. His numbers are not as good as we won the MVP, the Cy Young. He also signed a big contract. Maybe that's why he's kind of taking it easy. What are your thoughts about that? Is he getting old? He pitched a lot of innings. What would you say is the reason for Verlander's struggles of not being the pitcher he was a few years ago?
Ooh. What's that line Chris Farley has from Billy Madison, where he's like, Deep Voice, you know about that situation, right, with Verlander and Kate Hudson? And I'd be, like Chris Farley in that movie. I'd be like, yeah, Ari, I know from experience.
So you dated Kate Hudson?
I got it on. I love Chris Farley. I just got to bring him up when I got the chance.
Rest in peace, of course, Chris Farley, yes. Yeah, he died, I think it was like when the Orioles were in the playoffs. I think that's when he died. I think it was around that time.
Yeah. I mean, I was in high school. I'm, Deep Voices, Deep Voice was in high school back then. The Orioles were actually, winning playoff games. Look, and I'm going to have to make the shift to football at some point.
Well,
as much as I love talking AL East baseball, Radio Mike, this is why I feel like the NFL is a more successful sport.
The thing is, Deep Voice, we actually have to Deep Voice, we actually have to run. We have another guest coming up, so I just want to get your quick thoughts.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to get your quick thoughts about Verlander.
Thoughts on this, and it just has to do with economic parity. That's all.
Okay. But I'm saying Verlander struggles. You think that's really, he's like now living like a Hollywood star. The money, Kate Hudson, is that getting to him?
There's no doubt. There's no doubt that things mentally in a person's personal life can definitely have an effect on their professional life. So it's a possibility.
I think
at the end of the day, it comes down to the mechanics.
I think at the end of the year, a lot of these teams, Boston's battling with Tampa and the Yankees a little bit, and Baltimore, they're all in a dog race there, and you have Texas battling with Oakland. The only team that's not in a battle is really Detroit with Cleveland. Detroit takes it easy during the whole season. There's no way that Cleveland's going to win the division. Detroit's going to win it. And they're really built for the postseason. You have two great number one pitchers. Verlander will be Verlander, and then you have Scherzer. He's having a great season. You have Prince Fielder. You have that guy at third base, Mr. MVP Guerrero. So, and he's having another fantastic season. I would.
You're not worried about Verlander, you said.
Yeah, well, Verlander's just terrific, and but I mean, and Scherzer. I mean, these are number one pitchers. I think they're going to be right there once again, and they can take it all. They're built for the playoffs, which most teams aren't.
All right, Deep Voice, we got to run. Thanks for being on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio. Thank you for your kind compliments, and we'll speak on Facebook shortly, I'm sure.
Ari, Radio Mike, awesome talking to you guys. Thanks so much for having me on, and my best to you guys in Jerusalem.
Thank you. Be well, Deep Voice.
Thank you, Deep Voice.
All right, Deep Voice Brian Hoffman here on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio. Jam-packed show, as I mentioned, so we're not going to take a commercial break. But basically, are you thinking that perhaps Verlander was taking it easy because he wants to save himself for the postseason?
No, he's not really taking it easy, but, I wouldn't be too concerned. If you win 110 games during the season and you get knocked down the first round in the playoffs, that's a bad season.
Right.
But Detroit, they did get knocked out. They lost last year in the World Series, but, they have a good team. And,
I'm just saying we're used to seeing Verlander in the top three strikeouts, wins, ERA. We're not seeing that this year, but you're saying that doesn't bother you.
No, I don't. I think Verlander is still, one of the five, certainly in the top five best pitchers in baseball.
Okay.
And I'd love to have him on the Yankees. Listen,
yeah,
why not?
That wouldn't be bad. All right, join us now to talk more about the Cy Young race in the NL from WFAN. Talk a little New York Mets baseball. Daniel Friedman. Daniel, welcome to Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio.
Thank you.
All right, Danny, you're joined with Radio Mike, who's from Kew Garden Hills, so you guys know a bit about Mets baseball. Folks, guys, let's talk about Matt Harvey, because Matt Harvey is second in ERA in the National League, first in strikeouts, and he only has 8 wins. Is that going to cost him the Cy Young? First, Daniel, your thoughts?
I hope it doesn't. I mean, my gut is that it might. But, look, I think in terms of execution, he's been the best pitcher in the National League. I think you have to take into account the team that he's on, and that affects, obviously, his win total. On a competitive team, he'd probably have a lot more than 8 wins, and certainly not as many no decisions as he's had. And he hasn't had a lot of run support. So, yeah, I think you have to take into account. I do think it could cost him. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, but I think it would cost him. But you have a little guy out there in Los Angeles, Kershaw. He's having a fantastic season. His record is good. It's not really a great record. He has like 10 wins and 6 losses, a 1.96 ERA. But Kershaw is really a fantastic pitcher. Only 105 hits in like 160 innings pitched. So, if Matt Harvey doesn't win it to Kershaw, you can't only say it's because of run support. I've seen a lot of those games, and, anyone who's not impressed with Matt Harvey is just foolish. I mean, he is just fantastic. His delivery is so smooth. He's a real fighter out there. He doesn't even like giving up one run. And I've seen the run support he's gotten, and, he's pitched great games. He could have easily have won 5 more games by now.
Absolutely.
What's also interesting when you talk about the Cy Young, you have Clayton Kershaw at 10 wins, Matt Harvey with 8. Adam Wainwright has 13. Now, he might not win it, but I'm saying that this could be a year where the Cy Young winner has 15 wins. What do you think the odds are of that happening, Daniel?
I mean, it's certainly possible. We've seen just about everything happen over the last few years. I would hope that it's not the case. I think that if you're the best pitcher in the league, you're the best pitcher in the league, and that's that. And if you execute and, again, given everything else, all other factors involved, I think that should be enough to win it. I think Matt Harvey is a better pitcher than Adam Wainwright. I do. But I think it's certainly possible. I'm not in that room. I can't rule it out. I don't know exactly how they're gonna pick the Cy Young Award winner, but Wainwright's certainly a candidate.
King Felix, I'm not sure, but I think last year
13 and 12, he won the Cy Young.
Was it only 13 wins?
13 wins, yep.
I thought it was a little bit more than that, but that's 13 and 12.
A few years ago, yeah, he won the Cy Young with that.
That's incredible. I mean,
yeah, like I said, we've seen everything happen over the last few years. We've seen anything happen.
That was 2009 that I was talking about. A lot of people thought I was going to go to CC because CC had a much better record, obviously, win-wise. But that year, Felix Hernandez was by far better at ERA, by far at strikeouts, and they gave it to him. We want to ask also, Daniel, R.A. Dickey wins the Cy Young last year for the Mets. This year, you have another Met who could win the Cy Young, but the team is horrible. So what are the fans' thoughts about that, you have a Cy Young and then he goes to the Blue Jays. This is a Cy Young winner. He might leave at some point because he doesn't want to play with the loser. So what are the fans thinking about at this point?
Well, I think the fans are starting to see some of the building blocks being put in place. I think this year is a little different. You can start to see that there is a plan of sorts being put into place. You have Matt Harvey, you have Zach Wheeler coming up right behind him, who again is not Matt Harvey, but is going to be a very good pitcher in his own right. You have Syndergaard in the minors. There's something being put into place here. You could tell that the blueprint is starting to take, and the plans are starting to take shape. And I think that's the difference between this year and the last 2 years, where you kind of knew there were a couple guys in the minors who could be good, could be not good, but nothing was really taking shape. The on-field product was terrible. But now you're starting to see things. And again, unlike R.A. Dickey, Matt Harvey is young. R.A. Dickey, you knew,
was 37.
He was traded at the deadline or after the season. You knew he was gone.
Right.
But Matt Harvey is someone who's going to probably pitch like this for many years to come and hopefully be a huge part of this team. And I think, like I said, I think you can see that there's a process that's been started here, and you can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think guys on the Mets, specifically Matt Harvey, Wheeler, I think that they can see that too, and they want to be a part of it. So I think that changes things a little. And from that perspective, I would say that I wouldn't worry about Matt Harvey leaving. Typically, everyone thought the same thing, that David Wright was going to leave, if he wasn't going to be part of this team. He stayed. Jose Reyes was a different animal. I mean, this is the kind of guy who took himself out of the game to preserve the batting title. I really thought he never put the team first. But someone like Matt Harvey or Wheeler, I'm not too worried about it. I think that this team is going to be just fine down the road, and I think these guys are going to want to be a part of it, and they're going to stick around.
Yeah, and then you got guys like Wheeler, he's fantastic. Neese, Dylan G. These are all guys. I think they could have a really good starting rotation in a year or two. And I think they're getting a lot of salary off their payrolls, and they have to go out and buy an outfielder. I mean, they need someone in that outfield. I mean, it's probably one of the worst outfields in baseball. I'm not really set on Lucas Duda there. Duda.
Lucas Duda, yeah.
And I wish. I mean, I'm a big fan. I really wish Ike Davis comes through. I don't know what the problem is there, if he doesn't see the ball properly or his swing or this or that. I don't know what your thoughts are on Ike Davis, but I'd love to see him come back and have, even 2 months of the season to show some hope there, because he's a great talent. I mean, he did great last year, the second half of the season. I think he was just about one of the top home run hitters on the road in the National League last year.
Yeah, the talent is there. I think everyone recognized that. And for Ike Davis, I think it's really just a matter of confidence. There's something, whether it's in his head or whatnot, but he's got to fix that. But the talent is clearly there. And I'm with you there. I definitely want to see Ike Davis come back and play better. I think he has been playing better over the last last little while since he was called up. He's had a bunch of big hits over the last several games. So, and again, his average is not that good, but he's gotten hits in meaningful spots, which I think is, it's a step in the right direction. He's hardly hitting 200 since that call up, but he's playing a little better, and I think, with time, hopefully, he'll improve that. But yeah, the talent is clearly there, and certainly want to see him step up. I will say for the outfield, though, the one plus, I guess you'd have to say, is probably Juan Lagares. I mean, he's kind of turned into someone who you can actually count on as an everyday center fielder, which is something the Mets really didn't have until he came up. And, he's actually hitting over 360 in July. He's a very good fielder, I find.
What do you
whatever
think?
He's going to hit, I'm not sure. He's hot right now, but whatever for the hitting, he's a very good fielder, and that's something the Mets were also struggling with. They just didn't have a good outfield, in that regard. And he's been somebody who's provided some stability in the outfield, which I think is a good thing.
What do you think of Josh Satin? I mean, he's really come up and
Member of the Tribe, by the way.
Yeah, member of the Tribe. He was
another Jew.
He played for Israel in
the qualifier.
Last fall. The World Baseball Classic.
Yes.
I don't think he did that great there, but he did all right. But do you think? What do you think of him? He's really. I think he's hitting like 315 right now. Do you think they should look at him a little bit more seriously?
I think they definitely got to take a look at him. I don't see him as an everyday player. I think he's been more of a depth guy, come off the bench. But I think he's a solid ball player. I think he can definitely play a role on a major league team. And again, I think that's something that the Mets are going to consider down the road. But especially with Ike Davis struggling, they're definitely going to consider all their options, and Josh Satin is certainly one of those options. So he's definitely going to get playing time. He's going to see time at first. He might even see time. He's seen time at third, even when David Wright needed a rest. So he's someone who's going to fill a bunch of roles, and the Mets are definitely giving him a considerable look. As for what he does with that, I'm not sure he's going to turn into an everyday player, but he's definitely someone who can help a major league team.
Has he played in the outfield at all?
I don't think so. I know he played third base for David Wright when David Wright needed a rest.
Right, and first base, but that'd be a
good
good thing. He should,
first.
Be one of these guys who can, multi-talented and fill in any place.
Right.
All right, Daniel, we got to run. Sorry for the short segment, but it's Jam Back to St. Louis Live. But thank you for joining us. And I don't know if good luck to the Mets is a good thing to say. I mean, they're playing for last place. But I don't know. Hopefully everything works out. I don't know what to say at this point.
I think they're going to beat Miami, the Marlins. They're way up on them, and they're looking actually better. They've been, they win like 5 out of every 10 games, and sometimes 4 out of 10.
Yeah, they've been playing very good since mid-June.
Yeah, I think things are looking up for the Mets.
Would that be like for the Mets fans winning the World Series as long as they're not in the cellar? Is that would there be parties?
If they can be competitive for the rest of the year, I think that's what Mets fans are looking for. They want to see some sign of there's some, like I said, there's something being built here. And if they can, finish, above 500 or 500 for the rest of the season, I think that has to be viewed as an accomplishment because this team has struggled so much over the last few years. There needs to be a sign that something is happening here, that this team is competitive. And I think that if they can show that, then that is like winning the World Series this year for us, 100%.
They are definitely on the right track.
All right, Danny, we got to run. But again, thanks for being on Louis Live. We will be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, Radio Mike, before we bring on Ari Bluestein, tell us what games are like at Citi Field. I mean, I was at Shea back in the day, and those fans are very vocal at every pitch. They get very frustrated when their team is not doing good. And this was back in 2002 when they were 2 years off a World Series appearance. That's not the days now. So what are games like at Citi Field?
Games in Citi Field, it's a lot of fun. It's a nice stadium. It's certainly better than the old Shea Stadium. But in the center field, they have a kiddie park where a kid can get up there and hit a wiffle ball, play that. They have a dunk tank where they have someone dressed up in the opponent's jersey, and if you hit the bullseye, the guy goes into the water. It's a fun place there. I mean, I do eat kosher. The kosher food at Citi Field, I think, is a lot better than the kosher food at Yankee Stadium. And the other food, not that I'm an expert in just looking at the food looks better at Citi Field than at Yankee Stadium, even though I haven't sampled the food. But, it's a good stadium. I mean, I know this season the attendance is down because they're not playing that well. They just had the All-Star game there, so that got a big boost, some excitement there. It's a nice stadium, and it's a fun place to be. But people don't pay attention to the game like they used to. Like if you go to a game, whether it's a Yankee game or a Met game, people are on their iPods and they're texting people and emailing people. and sometimes they're not even watching the game. It's just amazing how many areas in Yankee Stadium you walk around. They don't even have a view of a TV or of the field, and people just talking to each other. I mean, why they have to pick their venue, Yankee Stadium, to have their business meeting or just to catch up on their lives. I'm not really sure, but I don't know. Baseball's, it's changed. The viewing habits of America has changed, and baseball attendance has been down as a result, I think, as well.
Yeah, let's switch gears now. Great Points Radio, Mike. We're going to switch gears talking for Mets and City Field to go to our Philadelphia Insider, Ari Bluestein. Ari, welcome back to Lewis Live on Israel Sports Radio.
Thanks for having me on, Ari. I appreciate it.
Sure, you're joined with me and Radio Mike, and let's get right into biogenesis. Of course, last week we had you on after Ryan Broad agreed to a 65-game suspension, and I'm hearing rumors that some players are actually going to agree to some type of deal the way Ryan Broad did. There are some players who will not, such as A-Rod. But before we get to A-Rod, talk about some of the players that have agreed to this deal and what are the reasons that they agreed to deal with Major League Baseball.
Yeah, it looks like two of the bigger names that are going to be suspended is Rangers All-Star outfielder Nelson Cruz and Tigers All-Star shortstop Johnny Peralta. I think the reason that they decided to agree to the deal, which from what I'm hearing is a 50-game suspension, is because this is a kind of a different case than just the standard, okay, you failed a drug test, you're suspended 50 games. The MLB has a little more wiggle room as to what they can determine the punishment could be. So they could, which potentially could be Alex Rodriguez being multiple seasons, they could suspend guys for longer than 50 games. But by players taking deal of the 50 games, which is kind of like the standard for just a positive drug test, then that may save some games on what these players might get, like guys like Nelson Cruz and Johnny Peralta. There's also some other, backup players and minor league players. Their names are being tossed around, but Cruz and Peralta are two of the bigger guys. And you actually already saw the Tigers made a move to get Iglesias, the young shortstop over from the Red Sox, to basically hedge for Peralta not being there for the rest of the year.
All right, now I'm curious if you could elaborate a little more. Why is it that they can suspend more than 50 games? Because with Nelson Cruz, this is the first time he's been caught, so it's supposed to be 50 games. How could it be more than 50 games with this biogenesis scandal?
Yeah, I forget the exact terminology, but pretty much they outlined that it was a 50-game suspension for your first positive test, and everybody knows that. That's the deal for steroids or HGH, whatever. It's 50 games. But because this is outside the realm of the actual drug testing policy that is out there in Major League Baseball, they have bigger discretion to do what they want. For example, when they are determining, okay, if there's a fight in a Major League Baseball game, MLB can determine, okay, this guy gets 8 games, this guy gets 5, this guy gets 1. There's really no specific guidelines as to how many games everybody gets. It's up to Major League Baseball. So this is kind of in that area where I know it won't be only 8 games or 5 games, but they are not bound by a specific policy of the 50 games. And pretty much I think what Major League Baseball is doing is they're saying, oh, well, if you don't deal with us, then we're going to try and suspend you for longer. They're basically, they're being like the big boy in this. They're being the bully, for lack of a better term. They could say, oh, we're going to suspend you for longer, but if you take the deal of 50 games, then that's where it'll end. So basically, the players are they're getting their backs put to the wall with this whole situation, and Major League Baseball can pretty much do whatever they want.
Well, one of the things I heard was that, like with A-Rod, he hindered the investigation. I heard he even he bought the place or he bought the records, and because he hindered the investigation, I heard also that he possibly recommended some of his teammates to the place, possibly Cervelli, the backup catcher for the Yankees, and some other players as well. They're really going to throw the book at him because the Yankees are pretending that they want him back at third base, but, they just don't want to be sued afterwards. But I think Major League Baseball really has had enough of A-Rod, and they're going to really throw the book at him and why he doesn't want to
take the deal.
Take a deal, and because it seems like they have these guys, right to left. I mean, Braun took the deal. He wasn't doing that well this year. He was somewhat injured. He said, "Okay, you know what? I'll take. We're not in a pennant race."
Also, real quick with Braun, it was the last year of his contract before it kicks into his bigger deal. So he lost about $3.5 million. But next year, had he taken the suspension, he would have lost about, I think, $7 million.
That's correct. That's a good point. But I mean,
right, and Mike, that's a good point about Rodriguez. And the Yankees, and they say they want him back, but obviously they don't want to get sued for the contract. They don't want to pay A-Rod. I mean, it's understandably so. They got locked into a terrible contract. Now we'll see if Major League Baseball and the New York Yankees kind of work together to see, what they can do to suspend A-Rod and get out of paying him most of that contract, if not all of it. So it's a very interesting situation. And, you brought up Cervelli. Yes, his name has been brought up as well. And yet A-Rod is kind of like the ringleader of this whole biogenesis deal. And I talked about it with Ari last week about, he is the big name. He has the records. He recommended this place. He's the ringleader for this whole thing. And if Major League Baseball is going to make an example out of somebody, they're going to do it out of A-Rod because he is the one that organized this whole thing. Yeah, other players are on that list, on that biogenesis list, and they will be penalized. But Major League Baseball is willing to make a deal with them as opposed to A-Rod, or maybe A-Rod just doesn't want to make a deal. I'm not really sure exactly how it went down. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with the whole Alex Rodriguez situation.
It's also possible that some of these lesser-known players have turned some of the evidence over to the authorities about A-Rod, how they got involved in the place and what A-Rod did, possibly to have emails from him. And so you never know. They twisted some of the players' arms, but I have a feeling on Friday, Yankee fans who really can't stand watching A-Rod anymore, I think this might be this might just be the end of him, and he'll be suspended for a year and a half or whatever.
But that's only if he agrees to the deal, right? Isn't he going to keep trying to fight it, Ari? Is that how it works, or by Friday could he agree to the deal? What's going to happen?
I'm not really sure exactly what's going to happen. I think Major League Baseball is kind of like really delaying what's going to be happening. It's really not fair because the trade deadline is about to come and go, and some teams don't really know exactly what to do. I think they're going to announce the deals first, and I think that with the other players, and then the whole thing with Alex Rodriguez will go down. So we'll see what the timing is, whether they do it after the trade deadline or before. They're probably going to do it afterwards. So it could be at the end of this week or maybe next week. I'm not sure.
Well, I think the trade deadline is in about 2 hours, so they're definitely not going to announce it before that. But, it's interesting you mentioned about these long-term contracts, how the Yankees got, duped into this. I know Cashman didn't want to have this long-term contract with A-Rod, who's supposed to be paid till he's, 45 or some ridiculous age. But now, look at Pujols with the Los Angeles Angels, and Josh Hamilton. They go ahead and they get the same crazy long-term deals, and they're really on the down part of their careers. And they go ahead and they sign, for $220 million. I mean, crazy numbers.
Yeah, and Philadelphia is in a similar situation with Ryan Howard as well. I mean, Ryan Howard held to a big contract, and now he's injured, and his production's been going down. And that's what happens with these big market type of teams like the Yankees, the Phillies, the Red Sox, and even with the Angels. I mean, they've made a couple of bad deals, and now they're not looking too good either. So that's the way it goes. You got to try and spend money to get these big-time players, and they want the long-term security, and you got to bite the bullet and hope that they are productive towards the end of the contract.
Yeah, but at least
for Alex Rodriguez, it just didn't work out.
At least with Ryan Howard, he was always a Philadelphia Philly, so you want to keep your first baseman. But the Angels, they went out and got Pujols, and they went out and got Hamilton. But they didn't have to get those two guys, and they could be at a loss for many years to come because of those two signings.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They're in a lot of trouble. They're even being sellers right now in this trade deadline. It's a shame.
Now, do you think maybe we'll see a trend? Radio Mike brought up the long-term contracts. These contracts are 10 years. Maybe we'll see a trend where owners will say, we're going to sign the guy to a 5-year deal. So if this type of thing happens, at least it won't cost us as much. Is that a trend we'll start to see due to these big contracts that went south?
Well, I think that might happen this year, and the test will be the second baseman for the Yankees, Robinson Cano. He's having a very good season, especially considering he has no one to protect him in that lineup. Just to let you know how poor the Yankees have been hitting for a whole month. The Yankees did not have a home run from the right side, and even their production from the left side is still really, really just awful. It's amazing they're even over 500. But Robinson Cano, that's what they say. Maybe give him 5 years, give him $20 million a year, so it's $100 million, and then instead of giving him 10 years for 15 or 18 million, just pay him handsomely for 5 years and see what happens after that. I think that this is going to be the test case. It will be Robinson Cano.
All right, Ari, let's go ahead, Ari.
I would agree. I agree with that.
All right, now I want to go back to this biogenesis thing. When you're talking about Major League Baseball being the big boys, it's kind of like they're the Godfather, and they make an offer that you can't refuse because they say either you take this deal or we'll just suspend you for longer. So with that being said, why would anybody, including A-Rod, try to fight them? They're going to lose anyway. It's not like they're going to say, oh, we were wrong, and we're not going to suspend you. So why is A-Rod fighting the Godfather of Major League Baseball?
Well, it's kind of a different situation with A-Rod because of what we've been talking about with the contract. And obviously the Yankees don't want to pay him the money that he's owed. So I think he senses some collusion, which there certainly could be. I think it is actually likely. So I think that's the reason why he's kind of fighting, saying, okay, now they're all ganging up on me, and even my own organization is getting involved too because they don't want to pay me the money that they signed me for. So I think that's a little bit different. I think Major League Baseball, as Radio Mike mentioned earlier about, kind of talking these smaller players into providing evidence on A-Rod to build against him so they can suspend him for a longer period of time. So I think A-Rod senses some collusion that everybody's against him. And you know what? Major League Baseball has good reason to be against him because he is the one that, as Radio Mike mentioned, he's the one that orchestrated a lot of this with biogenesis. So I think it's a little bit of a different situation. I think A-Rod may have a case, but I think you're right, Ari. In the end, he's going down.
All right, and also here's another thing I have. Because steroids have been illegal since, I think, 2002, I believe, in the United States, could, in all seriousness, A-Rod face jail time for not just taking it but being a seller? He's basically a drug dealer if he's orchestrating this. Has that been talked about at all?
I haven't heard anything about that. I think, we're looking at the suspension of baseball. I don't see him facing any jail time. And, maybe if this does go to a court, there may be some kind of, plea and arrangement made where he just has to pay something in community service and that kind of thing. So I don't see him going to jail. Because
let me tell you something, guys. A-Rod would not do well in prison if you catch my drift. I think we all know that. All right, Ari, let's leave you with this Decision Friday. We always put you on the spot for predictions, and you've been pretty solid, so let's try this prediction. Of course, we had the prediction with Joe Pa. You said on the air he'd be fired by the end of the week. He was. That was a big controversial issue. Here's another one. What happens on Friday? A-Rod suspended for a year and a half, or does this continue into next week?
I'm going to say this will continue into next week.
Okay.
I'm going to say it's going to, you're going to hear rumors that he's suspended for a year and a half, but it's not going to be finalized. I think this thing's going to spill over way past this week, actually. So we'll see. But that's my prediction. I don't think anything's going to be done, set in stone by Friday.
All right, there you go. Ari Bluestein, thank you for coming on Lewis Live on Israel Sports Radio, and we will be in touch. Enjoy the theatrics of this biogenesis scandal.
Thank you, Ari.
Thanks for having me on, Ari. I appreciate it.
Be well. Ari Bluestein, Philadelphia Insider. Radio Mike, you followed the Yankees for a long, long time. This is the most disgraced Yankee by far, not even close, right?
He's such a great player, such a great talent, and everyone just loves to hate the guy. I mean, the Yankees are battling with Detroit Tigers last year, for the championship to see who's going to go into the World Series. He's out of the game. He struck out like 11 out of 13 times. He's out of the game, and he's given his phone number to a girl in the stands. I mean, you
just to catch up real quick, we're actually dialing. Our next guest is in a hotel room, so can I get room 214, please? Hello? Okay, we'll try again. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
No, I mean, he's the most. He's such a great player, and people just, they just. Even, they just can't stand it anymore. It's enough already. He's not a team player. I remember at one time the Mets wanted him, but he made such crazy demands on the Mets. Like he wanted his own area where they would sell only A-Rod material. A-Rod jersey, A-Rod bats, A-Rod helmets.
Yes, can I get room Hi, can I get room 214, please?
Sure, 1 second.
Okay, great. We appreciate everyone. Bear with us. This is live radio, but our Dodger Insider is in a hotel room right now, and we're going to get in touch with him in a moment. Hi, Jim.
Yes, sir.
All right, great. On the line right now is our L.A. Dodger Insider, and also is going to give us some information about the Hall of Fame, Mr. Jim Smiley. Welcome back to Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio.
Oh, great. It's really good to be talking with you this fine day.
Absolutely, and you're also joined with Radio Mike's in studio with me. Let's get into Yasiel Puig. The funny thing, he slid home in a game-winning home run a couple days ago. People make a big deal about it. I didn't personally think it was such a big deal. People thought it was a hot dog move, but I think it's just kind of him being young and fun. What is the latest take on that? Were some of his teammates upset, some of the members of the media upset about him sliding home on the game-winning home run?
I think your take is right on. He's a younger guy. He's been sheltered quite a lot. He's going through a baseball and cultural adjustment right now, and it's really that youthful exuberance that you see right there as he slides in.
All right. Now, I was mentioning this in the green room with Radio Mike. He's young. He didn't get to the All-Star game, but people thought he had a legitimate chance. He obviously was second in the voting and only played 5 weeks. In all seriousness, I want you to talk about his MVP chances because when he came around, Radio Mike, you're saying the Dodgers were in last place. Now the Dodgers are in first place. It looked like that there was going to be some firing going on in the manager position, and now that's not going to happen. And Don Mattingly keeps his job. So talk about Yasiel Puig as a potential. I'm not saying he's going to win the MVP, but I'm talking about a top 10 voting. Talk about those chances.
Okay, well, I really don't see that happening. We have seen a great change by the Dodgers. They've won 10 out of their last 11 since the break, and they're able to do it in a lot of different fashions. But Puig has come back to earth, and if you look at his numbers the second time around facing people, he's not having as much success. And I really don't think anyone expected him to hit over 400 for a season. He's hovering right around 370. Really giving the team a shot in the arm. Overlooked at this point has been the play of Hanley Ramirez, whose numbers are really better than Puig in about the same amount of games. He only played 2 games in April and 2 games in May. And while the easy way out is to say, hey, since Puig came up, the Dodgers have changed their fortunes, it's really more of a situation of getting Hanley Ramirez healthy. It's getting Greinke completely healthy after the early problems there with his collarbone. And
right.
Sure.
Just to agree with Jim Smiley, just to back up what you were saying, Puig, he strikes out a lot. I think he's averaging more than 1 strikeout per game. Ramirez, and you get all that production from a shortstop, So I mean, he's the one that should be getting a lot of attention. Ramirez and Puig. I mean, he's certainly given him a shot in the arm, but he's not Mr. All World as people thought he might be.
No, Hanley's got a dozen more RBIs than Puig does.
Now, one of the things also with the Dodgers, Magic Johnson came in, the ownership, and they spent a lot of money, and they brought in these people. And at the beginning, they were struggling. We know the L.A. fans are a tad fickle. They're not exactly diehard fans when it comes to rooting the team all the way. But have you noticed a change in Dodger Stadium as far as more people coming because the team's in first place, starting to believe what Magic talked about, that they want to go and win championships? That's their whole goal. They don't care how they do it. They don't care how much money they have to spend. Do you notice more attendance in Dodger Stadium?
It's not only a matter of more attendance. They've sold out all of this homestand, and they'll sell out tonight with the Yankees there. It's a playoff atmosphere, and they've won their last 2 games in walk-off fashion, and it really does feel like a playoff atmosphere. And, it's interesting. Everyone wants to talk poorly about the Dodgers because they're buying a pennant. And what really goes overlooked is that they've spent more money in international scouting than any team in the big leagues. Sure, they have the money and the capital to do some things. They just signed the former Giants closer, Brian Wilson, and he may join the team. But, the international signing bonus slots are really an important mix here. About 4 days before the slots went into effect, and that would be $2.1 million per year, the Dodgers signed Puig to a $42 million contract.
Wow.
4 days later, the most they could have signed him for was 2.1 and used all of the money. They've gotten the scouts in place. They've done some things there. And then with the acquisitions of Ricky Nolasco and Carlos Marmol, they actually had $406,000 of international signing bonus money afforded to them. So their original slot was, all the slots combined was $2.1 million. They've done more than 20% of that to gain the right to sign players just by making smart trades. Their minor league system is getting healthy, and although you hear Magic Johnson is the front man, we've got to be aware of Stan Kasten, who was one of the Braves architects there for their 14 straight postseason appearances, where he built from within. So yes, they're spending money. Yes, they had the big splash with the deal with Boston and getting Hanley over here, but their minor league system, infrastructure, and international scouting is among the tops in baseball.
Are the fans staying to the end of the games? Because the knock on the Dodger fans for years would be that they would come in the second or third inning and they would leave by the sixth inning.
Got to beat the traffic, right? Is that still going on, Jim?
Yeah, you'll be there in the second or third inning, and there's still people wandering in. The last few nights with the walk-offs, certainly the fans have stayed, but there are so many different entertainment possibilities. Baseball in Los Angeles is much different than the East Coast. You go on the East Coast and you catch the train into Boston or New York or Chicago, and as you get closer and closer and closer, it gets more and more packed, and the excitement is there before you even get to the ballpark. And Dodgers, it's very different. The fans have embraced it. We're seeing a great deal of attendance, and again, it is that playoff atmosphere, but they're still getting there late. It's just kind of the L.A. way, and it's not really fully a baseball town in the sense of old-school baseball on the East Coast.
Another thing that I noticed with the Dodgers, they don't really have that much power, as far as home runs go. I mean, Crawford, he has like 5 home runs in a season, only 16 runs batted in. Ethier, I think he's having a down season. Matt Kemp, the only good hitter that you have there besides possibly Puig and Ramirez is Adrian Gonzalez. He has 65 RBIs. Other than that, they don't really have that much power. It's really their pitching, I think, that's really carried them.
Well, you're right there. It's interesting. This club can beat you a number of ways. When they played Toronto there for a little bit, they scored over 30 runs in the 3-game set, and they came out here and they had a 1-0 walk-off win Sunday against the Reds, where they struck out 20 batters struck out. But it's starting to come around, and when Kemp comes back, that offense will continue to get reinvigorated. But to say that the pitching is the strength is really accurate. I think that Kershaw, at this point, I think if the season ended, he would get the Cy Young Award. He leads the major leagues in ERA and wins above replacement for pitchers, and he's got the lowest WHIP, walks plus hits per inning pitched. And yet his record's only 10-6. You'd expect it to be better. Zach Greinke 8-3, Hyunjin Ryu 9-3, possible guy for the Rookie of the Year. And you've also seen a good acquisition there of Ricky Nolasco, who would be a number 2 or 3 on a lot of teams, and here he can just slide into that 4th spot, pitching for the team that he grew up rooting for.
Let's talk about the Cy Young real quick. You mentioned 10-6. Adam Wainwright has 13 wins, but you think at the end of the day that's not going to cost Clayton because of the ERA and because of the strikeouts?
No, I really think that the writers and the voters on these awards are more sophisticated now. If we turn back the clock 10 years ago, 10 years back, I don't think Kershaw would be the front runner. But once you saw Felix Hernandez win it a few years ago with a subpar 1-loss record, I think that they know. At this point, we're really splitting hairs. It could come down, it could be a start-by-start basis. I think Kershaw gets the start tonight, and Wainwright's the only guy who has more innings pitched than Kershaw, and that's just 1 inning more, but Kershaw will start tonight, and he'll, with a big outing that really pluses his side, and one or two off starts for either of those guys, and I think the Cy Young Award becomes more clear. I think we're probably premature in talking about it, and again, if it ended today, it'd be a tough call, but maybe Kershaw wins out there.
Well, I would think that Kershaw should win. I mean, the batting average against is like 185. Like you said, his whip is just fantastic, .87. And he's about 5 strikeouts to every walk. I would, I am from New York. I'm not a big Met fan, but Matt Harvey's had a great season. But I would definitely give it to Kershaw.
Yeah, I think so. At this point, again, we got a lot of season to go before that comes into play. But sure, a couple of good pitchers there.
All right, we're speaking with Jim Smiley, of course, writes for DodgersExaminer.com and CooperstownExpert.com. Before we switch gears and talk about the Hall of Fame, last question regarding the Dodgers. How close was Don Mattingly to losing his job?
I really don't think he was that close. Mattingly's great skill is to be even-keeled. And the big joke, I was wandering down to the clubhouse long before a game, probably 3:30 for a 7 o'clock game. And as I was walking down, I was in back of Stan Kasten, the Dodger owner, Dodger president anyway. And Donnie happened to walk by us, and as Don was walking by, Stan looked at him. This is when the team was scuffling. Stan looked at him and said, "You still work here?" And Don laughed, and that was their exchange. And it was kind of an open joke that the media wanted him to be gone or speculated, but Kasten was completely behind him, strongly enough to joke and make it kind of a whimsical idea. I don't think he was that close to getting fired. I think that the Dodger brass knew that the team that they had put together and assembled was not the one that was taking the field with all the injuries, and I think that they were willing to give him some time. Now, that being said, he is not under contract for next year. So,
wow.
But the
we'll see.
thing, when the Dodgers were losing the first 2 months of the season, they weren't losing by like 8 runs and 5 runs. They were losing like by 1 run. Like 1-run games, extra inning games. It wasn't like they were getting shellacked. They almost won, but they didn't. And sometimes the ball bounces a funny way. I think in the last 33 games, they've won 27. You get on a roll. You can get on a roll and you can really win a whole bunch of games in a row, or you can get a real slump. And I think at the beginning of the season they just didn't have all their horses. Greinke was out and stuff like that. So I think that's what happened to them, and they finally put it all together, and that's why they're doing so much better right now.
Yeah, Mattingly always preaches the idea that a week can really change the perception of how things are going. And as things are going great and they have their best 33-game performance since 1953 and everything else, he's the same guy as when the media was talking about his job being on the line. He's calm, he's relaxed, he answers questions each day at the dugout there at 4:10 before the games. And I like Don Mattingly's leadership abilities. I like his approach, and I think this club is definitely built for the postseason.
He was a great Yankee when he came back this season in a Dodger uniform to Yankee Stadium. It just didn't look right. But Don Mattingly, he's Mr. Baseball, Donnie Baseball. And he's a great guy. And I don't really think the Dodgers are going to have much of a challenge from Arizona. Arizona's like 2 games up. Over 500. They're not a really great team. Colorado is way back, 6 under. I think the Dodgers should win the division going away, and not be tested for the rest of the season.
I'd agree with that. A funny story about Mattingly, I finally got the chance to ask him about it. Apparently when he was playing in New York, he would the big bat rack was in the runway between the dugout and the clubhouse. And, all the players would write their numbers on the knob of the bats. They'd know which one's theirs. Mattingly would go over there, and his bats would disappear. And a couple days later, he'd go out to his car, and some guy in the, a fan would be there asking him to autograph the bat. He was wondering how they were just disappearing. So he took to writing number 5 and number 7 on his on the knob of his bat, which, of course, would be DiMaggio and Mantle, numbers that are retired. And he found that by doing that, the bat stayed in the bat rack.
Oh, that's hilarious. That's good stuff. Good inside information for Jim about the Yankees. All right, let's switch gears to talk about the Hall of Fame. Last time, the voting from the Hall of Fame for the writers, they did not allow one person in the Hall of Fame, including Craig Biggio, who had over 3,000 hits. And really, when you look at his numbers, I don't see how he could have taken steroids. Didn't really have a lot of power numbers. But I thought the Hall of Fame voters were making a stand, saying we're not letting anybody in because we're so upset on this whole steroid scandal. Next year is going to be a huge voting class. We're going to have Maddox, Glavine, and Jack Morris in his final ballot. Let's talk about Jack Morris, big game pitcher, pitch game 791, complete game again to win it for the Twins against the Braves. Is Jack Morris going to finally get in on his final chance next year?
Gosh, my heart says yes. I'm hoping for him. I think when he was pitching, certainly I felt he was a Hall of Fame player. But with the crowded ballot, I just don't know if he gets that push on his last year. Again, sophisticated voters, you look at his metrics and everything else, and they suggest that he wasn't that much better a pitcher than his numbers suggest. And 254 wins and a little higher ERA and a little bit of a reputation as a mercenary, 3 different World Series titles with 3 different teams. I don't know that he gets in, but I know this much. I'd sure want him on my team as an ace.
Well, the thing about, if you win the game, that's what the main thing is. I mean, we had that discussion before with Felix Hernandez. He won 13 games. He was playing for a lousy team. He had all the great stats, but he didn't win the game. And I know, you have Jim Morris. He won 254 games. That says a lot. He won 3 World Series. That says a lot also. The idea is, if you have your stake to a 6-0 lead, you keep that lead. Okay, so you give up 3-4 runs, so your ERA might not look that great, but if you end up winning 20 games in a season, that's a good season. No matter how you slice it, I don't care if your ERA is 3.5 or 4.5. That's a good season. And and to win the game, that's the crucial thing here. I mean, you have one pitcher who's just a terrific pitcher for the Yankees, and he was a great pitcher with the Dodgers, Kuroda. He pitches great games one after another, and he somehow he just doesn't win those games. I don't know if his teammates say, well, listen, we don't like this guy, so we're not going to hit for him tonight. But right. I don't know what the problem is. But some guys just don't get the run support that other guys do, and I don't know. I would give the win total a big factor in selecting who should make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, big durable guy. 3 times he won more than 20, another time 19, 2 more times 18. Again, I think his 3.9 ERA lifetime is
a little high,
scaring away some voters. Yeah, a little high.
Yeah.
One guy who should have definitely have made the Hall of Fame, I believe even last season, is Mike Piazza. I mean, he has the best home run totals for a catcher. He was a great Met. He was a great Dodger. And he's never been linked to steroids, so I don't know what the problems of these writers, what their problem is. He should have made it last year as well.
To talk about that, Jim, I mean, do the voters, you're friends with these voters, do they think Mike Piazza took steroids in his career?
Well, it's really interesting with who you talk to. It was such a guarded secret. I think that if you look at it and you figure you're a 22-year-old guy and the only way you're going to stay in the big leagues is by taking some kind of performance-enhancing drug, especially at that time when baseball was looking the other way, I think that most guys in that situation are going to go ahead and take it. Piazza's a guy where his statistics no doubt say that he's a Hall of Famer. It's really difficult to do a whole lot more than what he did. The PED issue with Mike Piazza, I know a lot of people who are quite certain that Mike Piazza was a steroid user. It's not really a closely guarded secret, I don't think, for a lot of the people in Los Angeles. You have that sports writer out of New York who lost his job for actually saying that and bringing up the back knee, the
right.
back knee on the back, and some different things. But this is where it gets pretty thorny, because a guy like Piazza or even Bagwell, they've never been publicly linked to steroids. They both denied. What do you do when you get a guy like that in, and boy, now it really gets murky. It really gets murky with what, even as a writer, what your role is as a voter. Is it your job to be the moral guard? Does it matter? Was everybody taking steroids? It's a difficult call.
Well, I think a lot of these reporters, I mean, they're not the moral guard. I know, if I could be a major league player and I could hit the ball to the warning track and take a drug and hit it just a little bit further and hit it 5 feet over that field, over the fence, I'm not going to say I wouldn't take it. I would probably take it. I'd be the first one in line to take it. I know it's not the healthiest thing to take.
But it's millions of dollars in line. And gentlemen, remember, Mike Piazza was the last player picked in his draft. It was a favor that Tommy Lasorda did because Tommy Lasorda was Mike Piazza's godfather. So they did that as a favor. But so that's maybe the idea, Jim, is that he wasn't so talented necessarily, and so he had to do something to make it to the major leagues.
Yeah, I would. That's the train of thought that I would go for there. Piazza, you've also got to remember the era. We're talking about a career that ran from 1992 to 2007, and really during the heart of that career, baseball didn't care if you were taking any kind of substance, and baseball needed Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa to kind of rescue it after the strike year, I'm not sure I have a moral objection during that time when it didn't matter. We have all of this revisionist history now that's a little bit difficult to swallow. And I also think it's difficult to reconcile the idea of the writers knowing that Clemens, not Clemens necessarily, but definitely Bonds was a user and voting him to so many MVP awards, and yet now deciding that they're going to keep him out of the Hall of Fame. That strikes me as a little hypocritical. Although I'm no fan of Barry Bonds.
Right. That's a great point. That's a great point. If you're going to vote for the MVP, when and people could say what they want to say, but when 2003 and 2004 came around, Bonds won the MVP. He won it obviously 7 times, but he won it 03 and 04, and it was pretty much known that he was taking something, or he certainly had taken something. They didn't have a problem voting him in. At 02, he won the MVP unanimously. Now, what's interesting next year, when they do the voting, Jeff Kent will be on for the first time. Most home runs by a second baseman, and he won the MVP in 2000. He beat out his teammate Barry Bonds. And what do you think? What are your thoughts? I don't know if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but I do think his number stays a Hall of Famer. So give us your thoughts about Jeff Kent.
Yeah, I think you're right on there. He's a guy who's going to have to spend a great deal of time on a very crowded ballot. And not only do you have crowded ballots with guys coming up, the guys you outlined, but you've also got holdovers with steroid guys, Bonds and Clemens and those guys. Jeff Kent was a very solid player. Jeff Kent, I don't know if he was a guy that you went to the game hoping to see Jeff Kent.
Right.
You look at Piazza or the other guys you talked about, Bonds, Clemens, you pay to go see them. Jeff Kent is just kind of a nice bonus. The numbers don't mean as much now because they're so overly inflated. I think that's where a guy like Fred McGriff kind of gets hurt, because I think that he did it in a clean fashion. And
Frank Thomas. Look at Frank Thomas. He'll be on next year. Frank Thomas talked about it. He said, I won 2 MVPs, and all of a sudden everybody lapped me. What happened? And Frank Thomas, as far as was clean. And I think that's a guy who really got hurt in the steroid era.
Yeah, that's right. His numbers are astounding. 521 homers, 301 lifetime batting average. I mean, that's a Hall of Famer before the steroid era.
Does Jeff Kent, does he have the all-time home run record for second baseman? Or is he very
that's
close?
right.
And we're even considering not putting him into the Hall of Fame? I don't really understand that one.
Well, it's interesting. Do you know who has the most lifetime hits from the catching position? Ted Simmons.
Oh, interesting. All right. Yeah, is Ted Simmons, is he in?
No, he's not in.
Okay.
He's not in. And
I never heard of him. All right.
No,
yeah, I might not be alone on that, but that's a great point, right? So you're saying that necessarily at a position, if you have the most hits, home runs, what have you, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that you get in, is your point there.
That's right.
But Ted Simmons, I believe he played for Milwaukee, is that right?
He did. He had a lot of great years earlier with the Cardinals there.
Right.
But he was an outstanding player, and he's still in the game and scouting. I see him every once in a while down at Dodger Stadium when he's scouting. I don't know which organization he's with now, but still looks like he's in pretty good shape. Ends up with 2,472 lifetime hits. I don't know how many of those from the catching position, but there's a guy who was an outstanding player and really overlooked. I mean, from 1972 to 83, he appeared in a ton of All-Star games. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 All-Star games. Largely forgotten.
You know, there's certain players. Actually, a guy, you know, since we're speaking like the Hall of Fame, a guy I think that statistically should make it. And this will sound kind of weird, but Bill Buckner. Bill Buckner is in the top 25 of hits, games played. He won 2 Gold Gloves, one in each league, which no one has done outside of him. But I don't think we'll see him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, the Veterans Committee is the last chance for guys who don't make it on the ballots. Correct?
Yes, that's right. Buckner happens to be my favorite player. I went to the game when he was playing left field for the Dodgers there, and he ends up hitting a home run in the first game I ever went to, and from then on he became my favorite player. More lifetime hits than Ted Williams, Joe DiMaggio, or Mickey Mantle, but really not a guy who's up for any kind of election or selection to the Hall of Fame. It was pretty neat this year in the Old Timers game. The Dodgers brought it back, and I've spoken to a lot of different players and interviewed just about every player from 92 to present day, but never got the chance to talk to Bill Buckner until this year. And I asked him about his longevity and that ability to, only 49 guys have ever played more games than Bill Buckner, and got a chance to talk to him about that. And boy, it was quite a thrill. It took me back to being a fan.
I mean, how bad was it that the ball went through his legs in the World Series game against the Mets? As he said, he was a good first baseman. I mean, he had bad leg problems. Maybe he should have been taken out of the game at that point.
Yeah, that was the end of his career in '86.
But he was a good first baseman, and then quite possibly that might have ruined his Hall of Fame chances. But I had one other question: has he ever been back to Fenway Park and All-Star and Old Timers Day over there?
Yes, he did come back over there, and it was after they'd won the championship, and it was such an emotional time. You can see pictures from that day where he's weeping. He's openly weeping, and the crowd is giving him that standing ovation, and they just love him. Before the air, he was a fan favorite. Even there in '86, he ended with more than 100 RBIs, and he followed that up from 1985 when he did the same thing. Really, gosh, I just hate that era, but McNamara, the manager there, wanted Buckner to be on the field to celebrate. Normally during the regular season, he'd put Dave Stapleton in there as a late-inning replacement on defense. But McNamara was so loyal to Buckner and loved him so much that he kept him in the ballgame.
Yep, it's talked about a lot. There's a lot of great things. Fans, if you want to learn more about it, you can check out different things. I mean, the top 5 reasons you can't blame Bill Buckner, that's on YouTube. Everyone should check that out. They even talk about how this series was made for a guy like Bill Buckner. There's a lot of different things that happen. He's a scapegoat, but you have Clemens coming out because he injured his pinky. You have McNamara making terrible decisions in the extra innings, so Bill got blamed. All right, Jim, we got to run. Enjoy the game tonight, Dodgers-Yankees. That's going to be fun, I'm sure. And, of course, if you want to check out more of Jim's work, you can find him, of course, on this show, and DodgersExaminer.com and CooperstownExpert.com. Jim, thank you so much.
Great. Thanks so much for having me, fellas. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jim.
Of course, Radio Mike, that Bill Buckner era that happened against the Mets, that was around, Shea Stadium back in Queens. Were you at that game by chance?
No, I wasn't at the game, but, everyone thought that was the end of it, the Mets won that game, went on to win that game.
Game 7, they were down, by the way. The Red Sox had a 3-run lead, and their bullpen blew it. This is a Game 7. This is after all that happened with Bill Buckner.
Right. That was Game 6 that he made that error. And then, but there was no way the Mets were going to lose Game 7. I mean,
something like that happens.
They had the momentum there, and, you have to win Game 7 in that case. And then the Mets did.
Darryl Strawberry, they had Gary Carter. Ray Knight, I think, was the MVP.
Yep, MVP of the World Series.
And the karma was with the Mets, and the curse was still on with the Red Sox.
Yes, it was. And now talk more about outside of past baseball. We'll talk more current baseball, the biogenesis scandal, all that good stuff with our good friend from Sports Byline USA, Andy Dorf. Dorf, man, how you doing out there?
Can't complain, Ari, as always. It's a beautiful day from where I'm sitting here in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. A little bit of clouds today and only about 93 degrees, but I have a feeling we'll be in the hundreds here pretty soon.
Oh, 93, that's a good deal. You got to soak that up, especially right we're getting to August. So good stuff here. Dorfman, you're joined by my Institute guest host, Radio Mike. And guys, we were talking about biogenesis in a couple segments before. Let's go back into it. Dorfman, what is the latest? We're being told Nelson Cruz has agreed to a deal. What are some other names out there that are going to agree to a quote-unquote plea deal, take a suspension, a 50-game suspension as opposed to a lifetime ban?
Well, I think you'll just kind of see the hits just keep coming in here, throughout the rest of this week and early into next week. I would think they'll have something on Alex Rodriguez here pretty soon as well. Here's the real thought, though. I mean, I'll be honest with you. This is just very disappointing when you really think about professional athletes and what we demand and what we expect out of these guys. And really, I think we're just as much to blame. I'm talking about society as well as these players. And let me take it even a step further. I got news for you. I don't think that these guys just started doing this stuff a year ago or 2 years ago. This is a practice that these cats have been doing since they were in high school. You know what? They weren't doing it as much in high school. Maybe they did a cycle here, a cycle there, and then in college they did a cycle here and a few more there. And then when they got in the pros, they thought they were ATL, which is above the law, and then they just continued to do what they've been doing. So I think that we got to look at this with a lot fuller glass and say to ourselves, this isn't something that they just started to do. They've been doing this since they were a kid, okay? And this is something that they're used to doing. They've worked it into their normal routine, and this is what it is. They don't just turn into, look, I'm going to use this term, and I'm going to use it kind of lightly, and they don't just turn into a scumbag overnight. They've been a scumbag, and they got to where they got to because they've been doing something for a long, long time. That's just my personal opinion on it.
Well, I mean,
Tell me what you really think, Dorf, man. That's awesome. Go ahead, radio mic. Sorry.
The biggest villain of all is A-Rod. I mean, he goes ahead, and I'm not sure what year that was. I think it was in 2007 or whatever. And he goes ahead and Thierry.
The apology year, 2009.
2009.
Yeah.
Big apology, and he's sorry, and he didn't know he was injected, and it was with his cousin.
Yeah, the cousin did what he was doing.
The guy is just full of baloney. I'm not going to use any other words because I don't know how many kids are listening to the show right now. But like you said, he knew what he was doing. Like even with a guy like Barry Bonds. I mean, here is a control freak and Roger Clemens. They didn't know what was being injected in them.
Yeah, let me interrupt you. Let me interrupt you right there. I mean, I'm sorry, but I know what the heck I put in my body. Okay?
No, these guys know exactly also. I agree with you 100%. They knew exactly what they were doing. They know that, one time I had to take steroids for a condition I had, and, as a sidebar, when I was playing ball in the schoolyard, I was able to jack the ball over the fence. I was playing a lot better, and then, I did have to stop it, but, when my condition cleared up. But, it's addictive, and, these guys knew what they were doing. And I think sometimes they need to be protected. Like you get a guy like Alex Karras, or that fellow on the Denver, Lyle Alzado. He goes ahead and takes steroids, and his brain gets fried. And so it's a dangerous drug. And these guys knew what they were doing, and now they should suffer the consequences.
Well, and not only that, I mean, I'm sorry, but quit insulting my intelligence and quit telling me lie after lie. Ryan Braun, obviously this one hits home to me. I'm sure Ari knows I'm from the great state of Wisconsin, and I grew up being a Milwaukee Bucks, Brewers, Packer fan. And I'll tell you what, he's a big fish in a real small pond, and there are a lot of people that looked up to this guy. And you know what? He did the same thing that every other joker does. He lied to us. He told us that a guy doctored his sample. I mean, give me a freaking break, These guys have some serious audacity, and they insult their intelligence left and right. And you know what? We're the dumbest of all, I'll be honest with you, because we continue to go out and support this crap. So I got news for you. We're as much to blame as these athletes are to blame at this point. I'll be honest with you. Baseball is not alone. I got news for you. I would have to guess 30 to 50% of the NFL is on the juice as well. I'm sorry, but think about the physical beating that these guys take week in and week out. You just can't do that and recover the way that they recover. So, look, look, and I think that that's part of it too. Is we got to realize that a lot of these guys, look, I don't think they're necessarily doing it to get better, guys. I think they're doing it to recover quicker. So it's a fine line, but at the end of the day, cheating is cheating, okay? And there is no right way to go out and do a wrong thing every single day.
Well said. Also, I heard that they're going to be investigating NBA players for taking steroids. I don't know if you heard anything about that. That was discussed on pardon the interruption around the horn. Have you heard anything about that, Dorfman?
Look, I got news for you. They do test right now, currently, okay? But the cases that they've had so far have been so far and few between. And I'm going to go back to this, okay? Cheaters are cheaters, guys, so they're ahead of the curve. They've already figured out a way to cheat and be ahead of what the testing is already testing for. So what winds up happening is they keep finding new things as to what guys are using, and then they put those things on the banned substance list as well. So if you're a cheater, you're a cheater. I'm sorry, that's my personal opinion on the whole thing. And again, they've been doing something wrong for a long, long time. So they've convinced themselves that what they're doing is right and what they're doing is fair. But ultimately, we all know it's not. And again, look, baseball is not alone. That seems to be the one that really gets frowned upon. It's almost like in the NFL it's accepted for some weird reason. You get a 4-game suspension, boom, you're back out there. I just don't – I think that that's really the problem too, okay, is the penalties are not severe enough for what they're doing. So, and that, look, with Major League Baseball, I blame Major League Baseball. I got news for you. They don't know what the hell they're doing, if you ask me. I think that they are so twisted as to wanting to bringing this game back that they created this monster themselves. And Major League Baseball is at huge fault. And I've said it so many times. Look, I know Bud Selig personally, obviously from growing up in Milwaukee. We were at the same club back in the day when I was a kid. Look, I don't think that guy has a clue to what he's doing. I've always called him a puppet. He's everybody's best friend. And the truth of the matter is, yeah, you know what? He's done some really good things with the wild card, at least the first wild card. I'm not totally sold yet on this second wild card. But as far as him getting all the credit for what he's done with performance-enhancing drugs and whatnot, that's a bunch of garbage, okay? Because the truth of the matter is, if you want to make a statement, make a freaking statement. Penalize these guys to the point where there's no reason to do it, okay? Because right now it's like a slap on the wrist. You get 50 games here, you get 100 games here. You get 3 strikes before you're out. I mean, I think that that's a bunch of garbage. You want to make an impact, really make an impact, and make those penalties a lot more severe.
Well, they might start with A-Rod on Friday.
That is true. I mean, I'll tell you what, though. I find it really hard to believe that they're going to ban A-Rod lifetime. I'll bet you what. I'll bet you this right now. I bet you he gets the 100-game suspension, and then it's over and done with. And the truth of the matter is we'll just wonder if the guy will just kind of retire because he's kind of at that age. I mean, so, you can kind of say maybe they're showing him the door, but at the same time, I don't think they give him a lifetime ban either.
All right, Dorfman, I want to know from a fan's perspective, because I do agree with you that we got to blame society, we got to blame the fans, because I tend to think that these businesses, like it's kind of like with a movie that has too much murder or pornography, and everyone gets mad at the movies. And I say, you know what? If you don't go to the movies and you don't give them money, they'll stop making those movies, and they'll make different movies. So I do agree that the public has to take more responsibility. But as a fan, if me and you are watching a game and we know there's cheating is going on, what can we do about it? It's such a big thing. It's kind of above us. Well, how can we fight the good fight as fans? So tell all the fans how we can go about doing that.
I think you stop going to the games. I mean, I'll be honest with you. You stop filling those stands. You stop buying the paraphernalia, the memorabilia. Look, the best way to hurt somebody is to hurt them in their pocket.
Right.
And ultimately, this nonsense with Ryan Braun, the 65 games and the $3.7 million, that means nothing. I mean, take away a year's salary from the guy. See what happens then. I think, it changes their mindset as to how they would go about things wholeheartedly. But you know what? We got to stop going to the games. We got to stop buying the stuff, the memorabilia. There's a lot of ways, to be honest with you, and I'll be straight with you. I prefer watching games on TV. You know, I get better coverage. I don't see everything when I'm at a game. I can, they replay things over and over and over. And, look, I think that for a while, I think that they were hurting because a lot of people with DirecTV and the NFL package, a lot of people were staying home, but, that's kind of come and gone by the side as well. So, look, stop going to the games, stop spending all this money that you don't necessarily need to because you don't know if you're winding up buying something that's going to be worth anything anyway. Think about it. Guys go and do the PEDs, or a guy goes out and murders somebody. Think about Aaron Hernandez. What's the value in having anything of his now? So I think if we stop buying all these different things, the games, the memorabilia, I think that really will hurt these guys a lot more.
Well, at least the Patriots, they had a promo. Anyone that bought an Aaron Hernandez jersey, they could return it and get a jersey from anybody else. But, it's interesting also what you mentioned about Ryan Braun. With the chain of command on his drug testing wasn't exactly correct, and this and that. It was a technical loophole. But if I'm not mistaken, he got someone fired because of that, and that guy's out of a job. And
I would compare it to what Lance Armstrong did, to be honest with you, discrediting an individual, hurting everybody else around you to make yourself look better when ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm sorry, he's a slime ball too. Look, the bottom line is he looked at us, he lied to us, he told everybody, and he had chances, numerous chances, just to come clean, and I don't know, it's just another black eye on baseball, and I got news for you. There's no place in any game for this kind of stuff, and if they really want to make an impact, make the penalties a lot more stiff.
Well, that could be a possible reason why baseball attendance is down. People are just tired of all this steroid stuff, and, across the board, baseball attendance in the major leagues is down this year.
Well, and not only that, I think that, look, baseball is so long, okay? 162 games. You got 81 games to go watch in your own building. I don't know. I got a lot of other things to do than to go and spend 3 hours every single other day going to watch baseball. And especially when you're talking about the Diamondbacks at this point, look, I think they were an aberration, in the first half of the season. People, it's like the Cardinals. Look, they start out 4-0 and everybody starts drinking the freaking Kool-Aid, okay?
Right.
Look, you are what you are. At the end of the day, they're I think it was, I can't remember who said it. I think it's Bill Parcells. He says, you are what your record is. The bottom line is I think that the D-backs are about a 500 team. They lack the pitching, the relieving, the starting isn't that great. Ian Kennedy snowballed everybody as well. The guy had a great season where he had 21 victories, and he's not that kind of a pitcher. Let's be honest. So, the bottom line is I think that, the attendance is down for a lot of different reasons, whether it's the PEDs, whether it's that the fact of the matter of 25% of every roster, they're all in the DL. You're not really seeing stars here and there in every ballpark on a game-to-game basis. And ultimately, there's so many different other options. You don't have to go to watch the game at the game. You can watch it on TV. So, and I'll be honest, I find that a lot more enjoyable than going to deal with the crowds myself.
No, I agree with that. I've been telling people that for years. Like just in New York, if a person has, let's say, they set aside $1,000 for entertainment, there's so many different things you can do. So the first, year or two, there was the new Yankee Stadium, there's a new Citi Field, but now you have the Brooklyn Nets, they have the new Barclays Center, so people go there. People go see the Rangers. The Knicks are a better team. So, there's a whole big pie out there, and the pie keeps on getting divided in smaller and smaller pieces. And, why go to 10 Yankee games? 3 Yankee games a season would be more than enough, especially if they have a lousy team.
The Yankees stink this year, too. It's kind of a shock there, but They're struggling. But I'll tell you what, the team that you mentioned, the Brooklyn Nets, that could be the ticket next year. Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Jason Kidd, a lot of those faces that were already there returning. I think that could wind up being the ticket as far as it goes, the Brooklyn Nets.
Well, everyone, I'm sure, is going to be rooting for the Brooklyn Nets over the Miami Heat. Probably the only place in America that likes LeBron James and the Miami Heat is people from South Florida.
And even then, that's a bit of a stretch because they left games early, even in the finals.
Yeah.
Hey, let me ask your partner there real quick. I mean, obviously the guy's from New York. I
Michael.
can tell by the accent.
Michael.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up. I was born in the Bronx, and now I live in Queens.
Hey, just out of curiosity, have you ever heard of a place called the Knitting Factory?
Yes, I've heard of the Knitting Factory. There was one on, I believe, the Metropolitan Avenue in Queens.
All right, 74 Leonard Street. Have you heard of City Winery, out of curiosity?
I believe so. Was that 55th Street?
Okay, what I want you to do is I want you to go check out City Winery. That happens to be my cousin's place, okay? So we do have a presence out there in New York City, buddy.
Well, is City Winery on 55th Street?
You know what? I'm not exactly positive where it is, but it is one of the most hopping places. I would guarantee it. My cousin's name is Michael Dorf. He's the founder of the place. He obviously opened up the Knitting Factory back in the day as well, and that was comparable to CBGB. I'm sure you're very familiar with that one if you grew up in that area.
That was on the Bowery, right near one of. Actually, if you must know, I'm a tremendous expert on restaurants in New York City. And the reason why I am such an expert, I keep kosher. I do not eat in any of the restaurants, but I make furniture. I've made furniture for approximately 4,000 restaurants in my life in the New York metropolitan area and elsewhere. So, I know all the restaurants. I mean, not too many Orthodox Jews can say they know all these restaurants, and I do.
Well, that's really cool. I will tell you what, I am part of the tribe, but I do not keep kosher.
Well, that's okay.
I don't know. Somehow I lost control of this show. I don't know how we got into couches and restaurants and wineries, but nothing like Jewish geography at its finest here on Israel Sports Radio. The few minutes we have with you, Dorf, I want to go to the D-backs because you talk about 500 baseball team, but Paul Goldschmidt's having a good year, not going to win the MVP, but maybe top 5, top 10 voting. Corbin, could he win? Patrick Corbin, sorry. Cy Young candidate, I don't think he'll win it, but what will it take for him to win it? Clayton Kershaw goes down, this type of thing. So talk about Corbin's chances of winning the Cy Young.
Well, Corbin's been a pleasant surprise. Obviously, nobody would have expected this season that he's having so far. What he's got to do, I think he's got to be tough down the stretch, and I don't know how many more starts he'll have. I don't exactly know the numbers, but I would think he's got to go out and dominate the rest of the season. And like you said, I mean, Kershaw's the man. He's awesome. So it's going to be one of those things where he's going to just have to keep doing what he's been doing. I think he's a pleasant surprise. I don't necessarily think he's Cy Young material personally yet, but again, you have a great year, and all of a sudden you get put in that kind of a light. But he's been a pleasant surprise, to say the least. But, at the same time, there's been a lot of disappointments. Like I mentioned, Ian Kennedy, he doesn't seem to be all that great. And I didn't think he was that great. Again, the 21-win season that he had, a little bit of an aberration. He's like a 11 to 13-win guy probably. Look, ultimately, the D-backs struggle in a couple of different spots, and these are tough places to struggle. They struggle to score runs at times. When Goldie doesn't play well, that you mentioned, obviously having an unbelievable season, and I think they were smart to wrap this kid up for another 5 years and the $32 million that they did before the season, because he's obviously would have been a hot commodity out there. But ultimately, if he doesn't play well, if he's not getting a lot of extra base hits and drawing runs the way that he's able to, and what we've kind of seen this season, that they struggle offensively. And then the other thing that hurts them is their pitching. And You know, when it comes to baseball, it's all about pitching for the most part, and then you got to have that timely hitting, which, you know, they had it in the first half of the season. They're one of those teams that never gives up. I'll give Kirk Gibson some credit, okay? The bottom line is this team will fight. They will claw. They will scratch the whole way. But ultimately, talent wins out. You know, the Dodgers have a lot of talent. You know, Haim Ramirez is starting to play like he did back in the day. He's a great player. This Puig kid, you know, the bottom line on him is he's raw. He's a little bit, you know, rough around the edges, but he's brought a ton of excitement to the LA Dodgers, and he put those guys in a position where they're at right now, and now everything is just kind of obviously working out great for them. They're playing incredible. I mean, I don't think the D-backs have enough to get in the mix. They're out of the mix now. You know, they had a 2 or 3 game lead going into the break. Now they're trailing by 3.5, and they didn't make any moves here as the deadline is approaching. I'm just kind of shocked. I mean, what I'm hearing is that they're going to make a move in the off season, like Kennedy and Chavez for somebody. But ultimately, you know, they let Peavy go. They let Wilson go. There were some guys out there that I thought that they could have gone after to help with the pitching. You know, it could have been nice to get a starter, even a Yevgeny Gallardo from Milwaukee, who's struggling a little bit, but seems to have a really good handle on the D-backs. So, look, the bottom line is I think they're ultimately a 500 or a little bit better team because of the 2 main areas that they struggle in, which is starting pitching, relieving pitching, and then also they have trouble putting runs across the board at times, guys.
Do you feel that Patrick Corbin is the real deal? And like I know Ian Kennedy, he pitched for the Yankees, and you know, he wore out his welcome at Yankee Stadium. And no one expected him ever to win 21 games. No one knew where that came from, and no one thought it was, you know, for real. And but Patrick Corbin, do you think he's the real deal?
You know, there's something different about Corbin. You know, I don't know what it is, but I like the way that he approaches the game. You know, Ian Kennedy, I kind of classify him as a guy who's a little bit soft, you know, and Corbin seems to be able to take those punches. He takes it from the media a little bit better, and there's something about him that I do like. Look, I think he's a guy that's going to be consistent. You know, I don't think he's going to have the gaudy numbers that he's having this year, year in and year out, but I think he's consistent. I think he's a reliable guy. I think he's like a real solid 3 pitcher and maybe even a pretty nice 2, but I don't think I don't think, you know, he's Cy Young material year in and year out. I think he's just solid. There's something I do like about him though. He's got good stuff. So yeah, I think Patrick Corbin is a little bit higher on my depth chart than Ian Kennedy for sure.
And he's pretty young still also, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's the one thing that the D-backs do have going for them as well. They do have a lot of young guys, so I think year in and year out they will be competitive. But again, you know, they don't have Dodger money, and you know the Dodgers are throwing it around left and right, and hey, it's working out for them. So I got to give credit where credit's due. You know, I don't necessarily think they have the greatest manager, but at the same time, you know, if you've got a lot of talent, then you've got a lot of talent, and yeah, I would agree with you. I think Corbin is a guy that has a shot to be a very, very solid pitcher in Major League Baseball for several years.
All right, Dorf, man, we'll leave you this last question. We had these questions asked earlier in the show. I want to get your prediction. This Friday, is A-Rod going to agree to a suspension, or will this continue into next week?
That's a great question. I don't necessarily think it's up to A-Rod so much.
Okay.
I think Major League Baseball has enough on him. If they want to lay it down pretty hard, they can. I think that, like everybody, we're sitting on the edge of our seats wondering what they're going to do with A-Royd, but at the same time, I kind of want it to go away. You know, I mean, it's one of those things that's been lingering for so long. So I'm over it, guys. I'll be honest with you. I'm over all this. I just come to expect it now. You know, it's like it's one of those things where if you don't know about it and you don't know, it won't hurt you. But now that we know about it and it's so prevalent in the game, I almost feel like they're all doing it. I mean, and I know that that's not true, but But if you have major stars doing it, what's the disincentive for guys that are much lesser players to say, look, this is what they did to get there. I guess I got to do this as well. And I just think it just goes back to that old thing. Look, nobody's above the law. And when you lie and when you cheat and when you steal, you're going to get caught eventually, okay? So, you know what? You got to look at yourself in the mirror. I really think that that's what it boils down to is you got to look at yourself in the mirror and say to yourself, am I going out there? Am I doing the job that I really love? And am I doing it honestly? And for the most part, I mean, look, I've been saying this all along. I think the numbers are so high, and we sit here and we're so naive. But ultimately, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, and these guys have learned a lot of the tricks to figure out ways to be ahead of the curve. So do you blame them? Yeah, I kind of blame them, but at the same time, I'm going to go back to it. We expect so much out of these guys, and when they don't perform, we don't want to watch the games. And then when we're watching these games right now and they're performing at such a high level, we're scratching our head going, is that really happening? Can they really do that? So I don't know. It's a fine line. I mean, it really is. But I just kind of want the A-Rod thing to go away, a lot like a lot of the other people do. But ultimately, I think that Major League Baseball can make a huge statement with Alex Rodriguez, too. So I think it'll be very, very interesting to see what gets laid down on that cat.
All right, Dorf, man, great stuff. Everyone, check out Andy Dorf's show on Sports Byline USA, Sundays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So that's 6 p.m. here in the Holy Land. Dorf, man, great stuff as always. We always appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, and I'm also on iHeartRadio now, too. So you can pick us up on iHeartRadio. And then I've got the local thing here in Phoenix, Arizona, Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. That's on 1440 a.m., but you'd have to go to GulfsmithRadio.com to check that out in the motherland for sure. So always appreciate you having me. I love talking to you guys. Great topics. And you know what? You could go on for days on these things. So really good stuff, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun to talk about with you, Dorf, and we'll be in touch. Thank you so much, Dorf, man.
Thank you, Andy.
All right, fellas. Take care. Have a great day.
Andy Dorf bringing it here on Lewis Live and Israel Sports Radio. Wow, you certainly can't say he held his words, huh, Radio Mike?
No, I was a little bit shocked in the studio here.
That was very entertaining. It's certainly saying least. He always is entertaining, and that was one of his finest segments. We're about the end of the show. Real quick, to wrap up the A-Roy thing, you think he will be suspended on Friday, or we're not done with this yet?
I think they have all their ducks in a row, and I think it's going to happen on Friday. And I'm hoping it's a long suspension.
I want to see a lifetime ban. I really, really do.
I don't think that's going to be the case, but maybe.
I can hope and pray, but
right. Why not?
I think I might go to the coach tonight and pray for that.
Right, a year and a half.
I mean, a lifetime ban. This is what I've said before. I know we've disagreed because you talked about a player. Let's say they stink at some of this food, but I want to see zero tolerance. I want to see if you're caught once, you're gone. I love baseball, and I love baseball. I know most fans want to see a home run or a crash of the plate or something big. I like strategy. I like the bunt. I like moving a player over. I liked 80s baseball. I really did. And I don't need the home run to entertain me. I'm happy seeing good, clean baseball. So I wanted to go back to that. I want to see a clean game in bed.
Well, I agree with you. Being from New York, when Matt Harvey, he goes out and pitches for the Mets. I think they're getting like maybe 10,000 more per game.
Okay.
But you watch the guy pitch. It's not only offense. A guy can make a great catch in center field or a great play at shortstop. There's a lot more to see than just the home runs. And a great pitcher out there. It's just a pleasure to watch a great pitcher too.
Baseball doesn't need steroids. Andy was talking about the football players taking some type of recovery type of steroid. I'm not necessarily against that, but they got to make it legal, and they got to make it okay to NFL rules. You can't have one guy take it, not the other, because then it's unfair. But if there's some type of steroid that makes the players recover better, I'm actually in favor of that. NFL is a very dangerous sport, and if those things can help them, there's a lot of steroids out there. Most of them hurt players, but if it can help the players, then I'm all in favor of that.
I don't know. With the NFL, they have other problems. I mean, how many have done serious crimes in the off season.
Well, yeah, right.
I mean,
sure.
we're not talking about jaywalking and just littering.
Couple of murders around there.
I mean, so and then you have to ask, maybe is there a relationship between the violence of the sport and taking steroids in football, and maybe all those knocks to the head? Maybe that's why they're such criminals. Is there any correlation between all those items?
And I'll tell you, just saying this real quickly. I mean, basketball, I heard that on Around the Horn. You start to think, they made a point. They said, in the 90s, I don't remember these guys looking this ripped and muscular, and they're right. I mean, I don't look like LeBron James and Michael Jordan. That's the comparison. I know they're not the same type of player. LeBron James looks like a football player, and I hope he's not taking anything. But now everyone's up for suspicion because of this era we live in, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah, he was built at 19 years old, also.
Yeah, so God, I hope that would it wouldn't. What the guy that would really bother me if I found out he took steroids. I would. It would be Kurt Schilling. That's the guy that, because I'm such a fan of his and he was on the show and everything. That would really kill me. But LeBron James would be up there if he actually took it. Who knows? A lot of things are going to unravel, and I'm sure the NBA will have an investigation. I want to thank everyone who came on the show today. We had a fantastic show, pretty fast moving 2 hours on Radio Mike.
Yeah, I can't believe that we didn't have any breaks at all.
No commercials. Commercial free.
Yes, I need to take a drink of water right
now. First guest we had was Haim Katz, former president of the IBL, still works for the IAB, and very entertaining. We also appreciate that he gave myself and Alex Griffell an opportunity to broadcast the Maccabi out last week. We then had on Deep Voice Brian Hoffman, who tried to explain the woes of Chris Davis only having one home run since the All-Star break. Then the WFAN's Daniel Friedman talked about the chances of Matt Harvey winning the Cy Young, even though he only has 8 wins at this point. Philadelphia Insider Ari Bluestein making one of his famous predictions that it's going to continue this A-Rod scandal, this A-Rod saga into next week. We then had on LA Dodger insider Jim Smiley, who was talking about the Hall of Fame chances of guys like Jack Morris and Jeff Kent. And, of course, Maddox and Glavine will be on the ballot next year. So we'll find out if they're going to get him. Maddox more of a control pitcher. No acquisitions of steroids. I imagine he'll get in 300-plus wins, the last pitcher to get 300 wins. And maybe if Andy Pettitte doesn't do it, he might be the last one ever to get 300 wins. And then we finish the show with the very entertaining and very honest Andy Dorf, basically saying that these guys were S-bags when they were young, and that's why they're S-bags now, and you can't be fooled or naive to anything. Thanks also, of course, to Radio Mike, my in-studio partner for tonight's episode. Hope you had fun, Radio Mike.
My pleasure, as always.
And stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of great episodes coming up in the future. Stay tuned to our website, IsraelSportsRadio.com, for continued updated news. But that's it for tonight. God bless, and good night.
Good night, everybody. Whoa.